Spectacle is something that you can't take your eyes off of. It makes a lasting impact for viewers. But emotionally engaging with your audience is a connection that is unrivaled. From the inception of the book by Stephen King called It, audiences have been drawn to the kids, events, and the story of a forlorn town that has been hopelessly invaded by evil. The chaos of Derry, Maine captivates general audiences in a way that other monsters haven't. It's not Michael Myers stalking you through the night or a ghost you can't see but you know is there. Instead, it's your dad, it's the shop owner, it's the kids you know in your class. The evil is all around you, constantly shape-shifting into someone that you trust, into someone that you love. It could even be you if you let it in at some point. That's what makes this story scary, but what makes it emotionally engaging. Moreover, what makes this show so engaging. Like everyone else, I've been watching the show Welcome to Derry. It's currently on HBO and follows the story of It during the 1960s era timeline in which It is in one of its violent cycles. We meet a slew of children and adults all taking on the entity in different ways, sometimes unsuccessfully. I want to talk about something that I think the show does particularly well: emotional engagement. This is not exclusive to the show when it comes to this story, but I do feel that the show does it best. That's a bold statement, I know, but having read the book, seen the movies many times, both the TV miniseries and the 2017 version, I can easily say this is my favorite iteration from this medium. Pennywise in the story of It is filled with tons of lore, and I think the TV show had the ability to flesh out the important parts of the story in a way that made it feel palatable without overwhelming for the audience. But that still doesn't explain why I feel the show is doing a great job emotionally connecting with its audience. So let's get into...
Who are you? Why, I'm Pennywise, your dancing daddy.
Getting into the swing of it though. Starting to feel like home.
The easiest way to make a relatable character is through narration. It gives you a direct line into the thoughts and motivations behind the choices a character makes. Mr. Robot, Dexter, Gone Girl are all thick with this narrative structure that places you directly in the characters' heads. Without the internal dialogue of Gone Girl, Amy Dunn would have lacked any sense of relatability, but when she spoke to the audience, it allowed us as the viewers to fully understand her motivations. That doesn't necessarily mean we agree with the way the character goes about their lives or their choices, but many people can relate to losing their identity in a relationship and feeling like you've given everything when someone you're with has given nothing. However, obviously Welcome to Derry doesn't have this luxury. It has far too many characters and at the end of the day is not a character study. Although we are not privy to the vast inner workings of our main characters throughout the storyline in traditional narration, it has the power to dredge up our characters' biggest fears and psyche in a way that is both spectacular and relatable, making every aspect of their lives seem like a traumatic nightmare. This creates a brief but impactful way to take a glimpse into the character's emotional landscape. Dick Halloran is also another emotional gateway glimpse into our characters' heads, although this is more for the adult population. We'll talk more about this one in the storyline section of this video. Before we can even care about a character's inner world, the audience needs a strong sense of their morality. We don't need perfection. We need figures that grow and become more dignified as the story unravels. There is truly nothing better than growing to love a character that you hated at first. I think this is best expressed through the character of Marge. Her wannabe demeanor is off-putting at first, making her seem desperate and pathetic. Eventually, she becomes morally righteous and compassionate as we see her rejecting the Patties and embracing her weird side, making Marge both likable and sympathetic by episode 7, and making the scene where Rich saves her from the fire a potent moment that is both effective and meaningful. It didn't take the trauma of losing Rich to change Marge. She self-actualized before that point and made a good friend who would give his life for her because of it. This was also Marge's battle against it. As soon as her mean-spirited behaviors stopped, Pennywise started torturing her. She fought his influence and won true friendship. She ultimately transformed into a character that we wanted to root for and not against. To tell the truth, everyone in the show is fighting a battle of some kind because Pennywise is constantly exerting pressure and control. Selfishness versus selflessness, fear and inaction versus being proactive. It is always attempting to thwart their moral compass. So when Lily decides that she is too scared of Juniper Hills to tell the truth about Ronnie's dad and what she really saw that night, we understand, but we're still upset. She is being controlled by fear. Even without Pennywise, she's up against a system that does not appreciate children. She's dismissed and worse, punished for her perspective, for her truth. The audience is able to commiserate with Lily, but they also understand Ronnie's anger. We're all feeling the duality of the moment, the hopelessness of failing to do the right thing because you're scared, the anger of injustice. This is also seen with Charlotte Hanlon's character. Having hyperextended herself into race relations and the civil rights movement, she's feeling the pressure. Her services to the movement are constantly juxtaposed against her husband's military service. She's proactive and helpful, but chastised for it at every turn. She has the benefit of being an adult, and at least she's taken seriously in that capacity. But her actions still have dire consequences. This helps the audience engage with Charlotte emotionally because we see her struggle but never waver. Moral fortitude is an admirable characteristic, but she still does make mistakes. She's not infallible, which makes her relatable. Dickie is learning about selflessness through his psychic ability. He feels like he's doing the right thing by helping the military. In general, the black men in the military feel like they are benefiting themselves, their community, and their country by being enlisted. Leroy, for instance, mentions over and over that he feels a sense of duty. Unfortunately, the men are being exploited. The camaraderie between the men gives a sense of hope to the audience, only to drastically extract that hope with episode 7. Overall, I feel like the characters were emotionally vulnerable and had the proper connective tissue to create an empathetic tie for the audience to their stories. Not just their stories, their emotional capacity within those stories. Let's segue into the next feature of an emotionally engaging story, the story.
Somebody could kidnap a kid and keep him underground.
At first, Welcome to Derry did something totally unexpected. It killed off most of its main child cast within the first 3 episodes. It was an earth-shattering move that I think shocked most people watching. This set the pace for the tone of the show, making the audience feel like they could grow to love a character that would possibly die in some horrendous way. The stakes were high and the rest of the season did not disappoint. But the character's susceptibility to death did not lend much to the emotionally engaging part of the story. It was more along the lines of spectacle. We needed to know why these people mattered to us to care about whether or not they died. So, Welcome to Derry crafted a story that was both bombastic and terrifying. Not because there was a monster eating children with big teeth living underground, but because there was a monster manipulating an entire town and the government found that useful. Let's be honest, the government sowing discourse is not a new subject, neither in reality nor in entertainment. The relevancy that it has for the real world makes it emotionally tangible. We know that incidences like the black spot were all too common in the past, and they are still denied their emotional and societal impact to this day. Control through fear is not a new concept either, which makes Derry merely a reflective surface for our own real-world turmoil. It's interesting because when I think about the movies and the miniseries, it focused more on the individual impact. Derry was instead a mirror for childhood trauma that had been forgotten in adulthood and had become an inescapable inevitability for the children's adult lives. Something that I feel is still in play within the TV show is the dynamic of adult haunting versus childhood haunting. In the movie, we see the adults come back and they see the physical manifestation of a monster. But before they get to Derry, their monsters look very different. They look more like the monsters the adults see in the TV show, concentrated more within the realm of reality, an emphasis on how people are monsters, or plaguing them with their past mistakes. The children, however, have more grotesque visions with elaborate gross-out moments. So while their trauma is on display, the formula looks slightly different between child and adult. Even the way we see into the mind of the adult characters is very different than the way we see into the mind of the children. Dick is the one who tells us what's going on in Taniel and Leroy's minds. We don't learn about their inner world through Pennywise necessarily, it's more through Dick. Many of the adult storylines parallel the children's storylines. Will is learning to be more like his father, fearless. His father is becoming more fearful because the one thing he loves is being threatened, his family. Lily is searching for a way to right wrongs and becoming staunch in her perspective of justice. Charlotte is learning to humble herself under the weight of Derry. Lily tells Ingrid, "My father is dead," when Ingrid tries to connect with her about having fathers that have passed. Something we've seen throughout Lily's time on the show is that she is plagued by her father's death, and so is Ingrid. But in this instance, she rejects the notion that this is a way to live with your father's memory. It seems like the adults are used to explore concepts that are societally widespread, and the kids are used to explore more insular topics about their feelings and their place in the world. Until episode 7, where these two perspectives end up colliding. We're essentially seeing how a child would handle a complex scenario while also watching the adult handle that same scenario. The kids in this instance offer a more simplistic view of the situation. There is a monster, it is in the sewers, and this is how we defeat it. And the adults create more realistic solutions for real-world problems. There is racism and injustice. The children in the stories soften the audience's resolve, while the adults amplify anger toward injustice. An example of this is when Grogan is arrested. The kids, they just need to convince the police chief that there is a monster running after them, and even though they are aware of the racism that pervades the town, there is still this very simplistic answer for their reality. The adults, however, need to fight through the biases of a racist police force in a racist country in order to get where they're going. These two sides of the same coin make it emotionally relatable for the audience, without remaining on an emotionally angry high. This is probably going to be the shortest part, but arguably one of the more important parts of this trifecta of emotional engagement. I can't stress enough how important it is to have good child actors when your whole entire TV show/movie is predicated on those child actors making the audience emotionally feel things. Too many times we've seen movies where children are merely used as emotional fodder to increase the stakes of some adult action or inaction. It is not that. These children are not fodder, they are at risk, and it is important to feel that through their acting ability. It is important to feel like you can connect to their character. And I think these kids, as well as the kids in the movie adaptation, have done an exceptional job of bringing their characters to life on screen. Some of them were equally as emotionally impactful as their adult counterparts. Even the children from the beginning of the show were fantastic, and they weren't even in it for very long. The fastest way to get your audience to emotionally disengage is by having actors who can barely emote and are not believable. Obviously, Bill Skarsgård's uncanny voice and look helped to bolster Pennywise's scare factor. However, I felt emotionally connected to Ronnie and her anger toward Lily over her father's unjust imprisonment. Her inability to control her emotions in public, the scowling look she gave to Lily. I felt connected to Will's confusion as he looked around in disbelief after seeing Rich's body. Charlotte's loneliness and out-of-place feeling, while also being demure and put together, as well as soft-spoken, spoke to me. Everyone was cast well, and I hope to see many of them in the next season. I'm not sure what's going to be in the next season, but if there is going to be a next season with this cast, I'm very excited to see them. But regardless, I appreciated their acting this season. So what did you guys think about the new It TV show? Do you feel like you emotionally connected with the characters and the storyline and the acting, or did you feel like it fell flat for you? I really did not know what to think about this series before it aired. I was excited for there to be a more elaborated piece of media that could really outline the story of it, but I didn't anticipate it being so good, and it genuinely just did not need to be this good. There's a huge fan base, and I'm one of them, that would have shown up no matter what. But the adaptation took its time really molding something that fans and new viewers alike could truly love. And I really didn't think anything could rival the 2017 movie. The storyline in this was much more interesting, though, and I felt like I connected with the characters in both probably very similarly. So I don't know if anyone feels this way as well, but it reminds me a lot of Stranger Things. But one of the things that I liked about this show rather than Stranger Things is that it wasn't separated in the same way that Stranger Things is. Even though we don't see all of the main characters in the same area, there's this constantly running common thread throughout the show that maintains the continuity from storyline to storyline. And I think that for me, Stranger Things has a problem with this, where one storyline, where it ends, it will take you out of the movie or the show, entirely. Whereas I felt very invested in every single plot point that was happening, and I didn't feel like there was an interruption between plot points, if that makes sense. Essentially, Stranger Things just feels a bit more disjointed. I would say the writing in it is better than the writing in Stranger Things most of the time. There were a couple of scenes, for instance, when Dickie was going through the mind of Taniel, where I felt there was just way too much exposition and it was a bit cringy. I felt like that could have been handled in a much more natural sounding way. But overall, I do think that it has the better writing structure over Stranger Things. Anyway, if you like this video, stick around, like and subscribe. Please hype the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye.